The job smelled like rust, regret, and forgotten dreams. Every morning, as the pale sunlight stretched across the broken windows of the abandoned train depot, Rafiq Mirza stood at the edge of the platform with a knot in his chest, wondering how life had brought him here. The place had been left to decay for years, graffiti peeling off cracked walls, weeds pushing through concrete, and the faint echo of a past that no one seemed to care about anymore. It was the kind of job nobody wanted, the kind people laughed at when they heard about it. But for Rafiq, it was the only job that had said yes. And sometimes, yes is all a man has left. If you believe in kindness and second chances, take a moment right now to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel Home with Dad. Your support means everything. Rafiq hadn't always lived like this. There was a time when his mornings were filled with the sound of his daughter's laughter, when the smell of tea and fresh bread filled their tiny but warm apartment. There was a time when he had a steady job at a small factory, where his hands built things that people used, things that mattered. But life, as it often does, changed without warning. The factory shut down overnight. The savings disappeared faster than he could manage, and grief settled into his bones like a permanent winter when his wife passed away after a sudden illness, leaving him alone with their 5-year-old daughter, Meher. Meher was the only light left in his world. With her tangled curls, curious eyes, and a smile that somehow survived even the hardest days, she became his reason to keep going. But keeping going wasn't easy. Bills piled up like shadows. Rejections from job interviews became routine. And each time he returned home empty-handed, the guilt weighed heavier than the hunger in his stomach. When the offer for the depot job came, even the man handing him the paperwork seemed surprised. Rafiq accepted it. The position was simple on paper: caretaker of an abandoned railway station on the outskirts of the city. No one visited anymore. There were no trains scheduled. The job existed mostly because someone had to make sure the place didn't become completely overrun. It paid, barely enough to survive. Most people lasted a week before quitting. Rafiq signed the papers without hesitation, because survival doesn't ask for pride. The first few weeks were brutal. The silence of the station felt suffocating, broken only by the occasional distant rumble of passing trains that never stopped. The dust coated everything: his clothes, his hands, even his thoughts. He spent his days clearing debris, patching broken fences, and trying to make the place look less forgotten. But no matter how much he worked, it felt like he was fighting a losing battle against time itself. Still, he showed up every day, because Meher needed him to. Every afternoon, after finishing his shift, he would rush home, pick Meher up from the neighbor who watched her, and bring her back to the station. It wasn't ideal, but it was the only way he could keep her close while working extra hours. At first, he worried about bringing her into such a bleak place, but children have a way of seeing what adults cannot. Where Rafiq saw decay, Meher saw adventure. She ran along the empty platform as if it were a playground, her laughter echoing through the hollow space like music that the station had been waiting years to hear again. She collected small stones, gave names to stray cats that wandered in, and turned broken benches into imaginary castles. Slowly, without realizing it, Rafiq began to see the place through her eyes, and something inside him started to change. One day, while clearing out an old storage room, Rafiq found a dusty wooden box tucked beneath a pile of broken equipment. Inside were dozens of forgotten items: old tickets, faded photographs, rusted tools, and letters tied together with a fragile ribbon. He sat down on the floor, brushing away the dust, and carefully unfolded one of the letters. It was written. Decades ago, a man had written to someone he loved, promising to return after a long journey. He described the station, the platform, the exact bench where they used to sit together. He wrote about hope, about dreams, about a future that felt just within reach. But the letter had never been sent. Rafiq stared at the words for a long time. Something about it felt painfully familiar. That night, he couldn't sleep. The letter stayed on his mind, its unfinished story echoing his own life in ways he couldn't ignore. And for the first time in months, an idea began to take shape. The next day, instead of just cleaning, Rafiq started restoring. Not because anyone asked him to, but because it felt like the station deserved another chance. He fixed a broken bench, repainting it with leftover paint he had found. He cleared out the weeds along the platform and planted small flowers using seeds Meher insisted on bringing. He hung the old photographs he found on a wall, creating a small corner that told the story of the station's past. It wasn't much, but slowly, the place began to feel alive. People started noticing. At first, it was just a few curious passers-by who wandered in, surprised to see the once abandoned station looking different. Some stopped to look at the photographs. Others sat on the bench, as if reconnecting with memories they thought were lost. Rafiq didn't say much. He just watched quietly, his hands still covered in dust, his heart cautiously hopeful. Days turned into weeks. And then something unexpected happened. A young photographer stumbled upon the station while exploring the outskirts of the city. Captivated by the contrast between decay and restoration, she took pictures and shared them online. Within days, the images spread. People were drawn to the story of the forgotten station being brought back to life by a single father and his little daughter. Visitors began to arrive. Not in large crowds at first, but enough to change everything. They came to see the station, to take photos, to sit in silence, to remember. Some brought flowers, others brought stories, and slowly, the place that no one wanted became a place people needed. Rafiq couldn't believe it. For the first time in a long while, he felt like his work mattered again. With the increase in visitors came small opportunities. Someone offered to set up a tea stall near the entrance. Another volunteered to help repair the roof. A local artist painted a mural on one of the walls, capturing the spirit of hope that had begun to define the station. And through it all, Meher remained at the center of it. Her laughter, her innocence, her belief that even broken places could become beautiful again. Rafiq started earning a little extra from the visitors. Not much, but enough to ease the constant pressure of survival. He bought Meher a new dress. He fixed the leaking roof of their apartment. Small victories, but victories nonetheless. But life doesn't change without testing you. One afternoon, as Rafiq was finishing his work, a group of officials arrived at the station. Their presence felt heavy, their expressions unreadable. They informed him that the land had been marked for redevelopment. The station would be demolished to make way for a commercial complex. Just like that, everything he had built, everything he had fought for, gone. The words hit him harder than anything he had faced before. He stood there, unable to speak, as the officials handed him a notice. They gave him a date, a deadline, a finality that left no room for hope. That night, Rafiq sat alone on the platform long after Meher had fallen asleep beside him. The station was quiet again, as if it already knew what was coming. He looked around at the benches he had repaired, the flowers Meher had planted, the wall of memories he had created, and for the first time in months, he felt helpless. But then, he remembered the letter, the one that was never sent, and something inside him refused to give up. The next morning, Rafiq did something he had never done before. He asked for help. He spoke to the visitors, the locals, the people who had come to love the station. He told them what was happening. He didn't beg. He didn't complain. He simply shared the truth, and the response was overwhelming. People came together in ways he never imagined. Petitions were signed. Stories were shared online. The station became more than just a place. It became a symbol. A reminder that even the most forgotten corners of the world could hold meaning. Days turned into a fight. A fight Rafiq refused to lose. And then, just days before the demolition was set to begin, something incredible happened. The authorities changed their decision. The station would not be destroyed. Instead, it would be preserved as a community heritage site. Rafiq stood there, the notice trembling in his hands, unable to believe what he was reading. Around him, people cheered. Meher hugged him tightly, her laughter echoing once again through the station. In that moment, everything changed. The job nobody wanted had become the reason. His life found meaning again. Years later, The station became known as a place of hope, a place where stories lived, a place where a single father refused to give up. And every morning as sunlight filled the platform, Rafiq stood there not as a caretaker of something abandoned, but as the guardian of something reborn. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to like, comment, and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Your support helps stories like this reach more people. Special request: comment below, hope lives on. If you believe that even the hardest struggles can lead to something beautiful, because sometimes the jobs nobody wants become the lives we were meant to live.